All right, let's dive into an epic love story from ancient Persia's great epic, the Shahnameh. It's got a kind of Romeo and Juliet vibe, but honestly, with a way cooler mythical twist. We're talking about the tale of Zal and Rudaba, and their story is all about how a love that was supposed to be forbidden ended up shaping the future of a whole nation. It's pretty incredible. And really, their whole story boils down to this one powerful idea. From the heart of the toughest oppositions, great things are born. I mean, that's a pretty heavy thought, right? It's this idea that the biggest challenges, the things that seem impossible, are exactly where legends come from. So let's see how it all went down. Okay, so first things first, we gotta meet our main characters. We've got our hero and our princess. And trust me, to really get why their love was so impossible, you have to know about their wild backstories. I mean, we're talking about origins just dripping with myth and destiny right from day one. So on one side, we have Zal. Now get this, he was born with a full head of pure white hair. Back then, this was a huge deal. His father, a famous warrior named Sam, totally freaked out. He thought it was some kind of terrible omen, so he just left the baby on a mountain to die. Yeah, rough start. But fate intervened. Zal was found and raised by the Simurgh, this incredible, wise, mythical bird. And the Simurgh didn't just keep him alive. It taught him everything: wisdom, courage, basically how to be a legend. So fast forward a few years, Zal's father, Sam, is just eaten up with guilt and goes looking for his son. And what he finds isn't some cursed kid. Nope. He finds this powerful, wise young man who was literally raised by a magical bird. Zal wasn't an outcast anymore. He was a full-blown hero, ready for whatever came next. And that path eventually takes him to a land called Kabbalistan. And that's where he starts hearing whispers about Princess Rudaba. People weren't just talking about how beautiful she was. They were talking about her incredible intelligence, her bravery. You can see where this is going, right? She was, in every single way, his perfect match. But here's the thing. When these two finally do meet, it's not just sparks flying. It's a full-on political explosion. Because their love, it was completely and totally impossible. It was forbidden. I mean, the connection between them was instant. It was one of those love-at-first-sight things, but deeper. You're talking about two incredibly powerful souls just clicking right away. So, sounds perfect, right? A hero raised by a magical bird, a brilliant and brave princess. It's a fairy tale. So what's the big deal? What was the problem? Well, the problem was all about politics and bad blood that went way, way back. See, Zal was an Iranian hero. He represented his people. But Rudaba's family, they were from a rival lineage, considered enemies of Iran. So them falling in love wasn't just, a personal choice. It was basically an act of treason. And the pushback was absolute. We're talking furious families, kings on both sides saying, no way, not happening. From every single angle you could look at it, this relationship was completely doomed. But this isn't a sad story, okay? This is a story about defiance. Because when they were faced with this impossible choice, Zal and Rudaba didn't just give up. They decided, nope, we're not going to let a bunch of kings decide our future. They were going to forge their own path. And it all started with one incredibly brave move. They just flat out refused to be used as pawns in some big political chess game. So in secret, they started talking, making plans, and they made a promise to each other. Their love was worth it. It was worth fighting for no matter what. And this next part, this is the moment everyone remembers from their story. It's so cinematic. To meet Zal in secret, Rudaba goes to her palace window and lets down her super long, beautiful hair. She literally braids it into a rope strong enough for him to climb up. Can you imagine? It's just this perfect symbol of their trust and their creativity, literally making a bridge out of her own hair to get past the walls that were trying to keep them apart. So cool. And, well, word gets out. People start hearing about how devoted they are to each other, the crazy lengths they're willing to go to. And when you're faced with a love that pure, that unstoppable, it's hard to stay angry. The families and even the king of Iran started to come around. It took a lot of talking, for sure, but eventually they got the blessing they needed. But getting married wasn't just a happily ever after for them. Oh no, the impact of their union was huge. It would completely change the course of Persian mythology. This is where we got to the legacy of that so-called impossible love. So yeah, their marriage helped heal old rivalries, but it also created something totally new. Because soon enough, a child was born, and this child was the living symbol of these two enemy peoples coming together. And they named him Rostam. Now, if you know anything about Persian myths, that name is a big deal. Rostam would grow up to be the greatest hero in Iranian history, the main character in countless stories told for thousands of years. Just think about that. The nation's greatest hero, its greatest strength, was born from a love that same nation tried to outlaw. Wow. So, what are the big lessons here? What can we pull from this incredible old story? Well, first, being different, like Zal's white hair, isn't a curse. It can actually be the source of your greatest strength. Second, true love isn't passive. It's not just a feeling, it's about courage and action. And finally, it all comes back to that idea we started with, right? The greatest things really do come from the toughest opposition. Look, the story of Zal and Rudaba is a myth, sure, but the message, it's totally timeless. It really makes you think, in our world today, which is still so full of walls and divisions, what kind of bridges can we build? What supposedly impossible connections, if we just had enough love and courage, could completely change our own story?